All adoptions, they're going to have an attorney that's appointed for the child, and there's going to be visits to the home.
Adoption laws can vary from state to state. So, what should you know if you live in the state of Texas? We're talking to attorney Duana Boswell-Loechel about that on today's episode of Ask the Lawyer. Duana, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great to talk to you. So, for family law attorneys, there are more than one type of adoption. Can you discuss the different ways that families can adopt a child in Texas?
There are several ways. One, you go through an agency and they usually provide you what you need in order to adopt in that fashion. We have step parent adoptions. So if one parent remarries and their new spouse wants to adopt their children. We have adoptions through foster care system, which there's a few more hoops that you have to jump through with that one. And then your typical private adoption, that's just one party wanting to adopt with another and they're not going through an agency.
What is the process for a step parent adoption in Texas, and does the biological parent have to agree?
So the biological parent does not have to agree to the adoption. There are involuntary terminations available in Texas if they meet one of the requirements. The most common one is they haven't exercised visitation, or even more common, they haven't paid child support in a significant amount of time. Step parents, they can, if the other parent does agree to the adoption, then they can file an affidavit of relinquishment, which makes the steps much easier. So you don't have to terminate their rights through a trial of actually going through and presenting evidence and witnesses. And the next step would just be the parent that's remaining a parent consents to that adoption. And depending on the age of the child, if they're 12 or older, they also have to consent to the adoption. And then you file the petition with the court. They have to be in the same household for at least 6 months. And then it's usually a pretty easy process once the other biological parents' rights have been terminated.
And what's the difference between a step parent adoption and adoption by a family member or close friend or a private party?
There's if we're terminating both of the biological parents' rights, that's usually the biggest difference. Is we have to go through some background checks. We have to go through fingerprints. There's a report for health, education, and welfare of the family that needs to go through. We have in all adoptions, they're going to have an attorney that's appointed for the child, and there's going to be visits to the home.
So, what is agency adoption, and can people apply to adopt a child through an agency?
Agency adoptions are through a licensed adoption agency, and anybody can reach out and contact an agency adoption and see if they qualify. And the agency is the one that actually pairs the adoptive parents with the biological parents to make that connection for the adoption to move forward. And they also provide all the supporting documentation and paperwork and reports and everything that needs to go with it.
Do you need your own lawyer if you're going through an adoption agency?
Um, some adoption agencies will provide the lawyer for you, and some will ask that you get your own lawyer. So it just depends on the agency.
Duana, thank you again. We appreciate your expertise as always.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been Duana Boswell-Loechel. If you want to ask Duana about your situation, call the number on the screen. Thanks for watching. I'm Tom Mustin for Ask the Lawyers.